One second, ladies and gentlemen. Alright, good. There we go, guys. Sorry about this. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I did get a haircut. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I am One Man. I must be from Reddit? Really? That's what you got for me, bud? That's what you got for me? Oh, for fuck's sake. I thought you were serious. My bad. You guys can see my stream perfectly fine, right? I can make highlight videos, really? Huh. Alright, stream is healthy. Let's get started. It's quite close to... It's actually time for me to watch the vice presidential debates between Kamala Harris and good old-fashioned Mike Pence. No. Same rules as before. Same rule as before. Can't show footage. Just give you my reaction and analysis. And I also tend to not react with VTubers in this case when I do this stuff. I just feel it's not appropriate. Because this is in real life shiz. And all that good shiz. So, give me 1 second time to share the link to my Discord server. If people weren't assholes about claiming, about doing some claims on video footage for the vice presidential debates, I would be glad to show you it.
Good evening. From the University of Utah in Salt Lake City, welcome to the first and only vice presidential debate of 2020, sponsored by the nonprofit.
I use a program called FaceRig.
I'm Susan Page of USA Today. It is my honor to moderate this debate, an important part of our democracy.
Well, I'm glad you're honored.
In Kingsbury Hall
or at least you
tonight,
say you're
we have
honored.
A small and socially distant audience, and we've taken extra precautions during this pandemic. Among other things, everyone in the audience is required to wear a face mask.
Well, not safety
and the
first, but
candidates
you get the word.
will be seated 12 feet apart. The audience is enthusiastic about their candidates,
seated?
but they've agreed to express that enthusiasm only twice, at the end of the debate and now when I introduce the candidates. Please welcome California
C-SPAN may have things under control.
Vice President Mike Pence.
All right, let's get this started. I'll give them both credit. They look really snazzy, man. Also, why was Trump and Biden standing, but they get to sit? Why? Why do they get to sit?
Senator Harris and Vice President Pence, thank you for being here. We're meeting as President Trump and the First Lady continue to undergo treatment in Washington after testing positive for COVID-19. We send our thoughts and prayers to them for their rapid and complete recovery and for the recovery of everyone afflicted by the coronavirus.
That I can agree with.
The two campaigns and the Commission on Presidential Debates have agreed to the ground rules for tonight. I'm here to enforce them on behalf of the millions of Americans who are watching.
I hope this works.
No one in either campaign or at the Commission or anywhere else has been told in advance what topics I'll raise or what questions I'll ask. This 90-minute debate will be divided into 9 segments of about 10 minutes each. I'll begin a segment by posing a question to each of you, sometimes the same question, sometimes a different question on the same topic. You will then have 2 minutes to answer without interruption by me or the other candidate. Then we'll take 6 minutes or so to discuss the issue. At that point, although there will always be more to say, we'll move on to the next topic.
That makes sense.
We want a debate
that
is lively, but Americans also deserve a discussion that is civil. These are tumultuous times, but we can and will have a respectful exchange about the big issues facing our nation. Let's begin with the ongoing pandemic that has cost our country so much. Senator Harris, the coronavirus is not under control. Over the past week, Johns Hopkins reports that 39 states have had more COVID cases over the past 7 days than in the week before.
Not
9
surprising.
states have set new records. Even if a vaccine is released soon, the next administration will face hard choices. What would a Biden administration do in January and February that a Trump administration wouldn't do? Would you impose new lockdowns for businesses and schools and hotspots? A federal mandate to wear masks? You have 2 minutes to respond without interruption.
Thank you, Susan. Well, the American people have witnessed what is the greatest failure of any presidential administration in the history of our country. And here are the facts. 210,000 dead people in our country in just the last several months. Over 7 million people who have contracted this disease. 1 in 5 businesses closed. We're looking at frontline workers who have been treated like sacrificial workers. We are looking at over 30 million
She really
people
is intent on
who in the
smearing this
last
kid.
several months had to file for unemployment. And here's the thing. On January 28th, the vice president and the president were informed about the nature of this pandemic. They were informed that it's lethal in consequence, that it is
Doesn't mean
airborne,
anything.
that it will affect young people, and
It
that
will affect
it
everyone,
will
you
be
idiot. It
contracted
affects anybody
because
with...
it is airborne. And they knew what was happening, and they didn't tell you. Can you imagine if you knew on January 28th?
I actually applaud Pence's
what
sense
they
of
knew, what
decorum.
you might have done to prepare? They knew, and they covered it up. The president said it was a hoax. They minimized
said it on
the seriousness
purpose.
of it. The president said, you're on one side of his ledger if you wear a mask, you're on the other side of his ledger if you don't. And in spite of all of that, today they still don't have a plan. They still don't have a plan. Well, Joe Biden does. And
No,
our
he
plan is
doesn't.
about
He does
what we
not.
need to do around a national strategy for contact tracing, for testing, for administration of the vaccine, and making sure that it will be free for all. That is the plan that Joe Biden has and that I have, knowing that we have to get a hold of what has been going on, and we need to save our country. And Joe Biden is the best leader to do that, and frankly, this administration has forfeited
Thank you, Senator
their right to re-election based on this.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Vice President Pence, more than 210,000 Americans have died of COVID-19 since February. The U.S. death toll as a percentage of our population is higher than that of almost
Keep in mind, this
every
is going to be a
other
more
continent.
analytical take than before.
For instance, our death rate is 2.5 times that of Canada next door. You head the administration's coronavirus task force. Why is the U.S. death toll as a percentage of our population higher than that of almost every other wealthy country? And you have 2 minutes to respond without interruption.
Susan, thank you. And I want to thank the Commission and the University of Utah for hosting this event. And Senator Harris, It's a privilege to be on the stage with you. Our nation has gone through a very challenging time this year. But I want the American people to know that from the very first day, President Donald Trump has put the health of America first. Before there were more than 5 cases in the United States, all people who had returned from China, President Donald Trump did what no other American president had ever done. And that was he suspended all travel from China, the second largest economy in the world. Now,
Fair
Senator
point.
Joe Biden opposed that decision. He said it was xenophobic and hysterical. But I can tell you, having led the White House Coronavirus Task Force, that decision alone by President Trump bought us invaluable time to stand up the greatest national mobilization
Thank you.
since World War II.
Thank you,
And I believe it
Pence.
saved hundreds of thousands of American lives. Because with that time, we were able to reinvent testing. More than 115
Wow.
million tests have been done to date. We were able to see to the
dignity.
delivery of billions of supplies.
The
so
utter
doctors and nurses had the
dignity of
resources
Mike
support they
Pence.
needed. And we began, really, before the month of February was out, to develop a vaccine and to develop medicines and therapeutics that have been saving lives all along the way. And under President Trump's leadership, Operation Warp
I
Speed,
love
we
his
believe we'll
positive
have
tone.
literally tens of millions of doses of a vaccine before the end of this year. The reality is, when you look at the Biden plan, it reads an awful lot like what President Trump and I and our task force have been doing every step of the way. I mean, quite frankly, when I look at their plan that talks about advancing testing, creating new PPE, developing a vaccine, it looks a little bit like plagiarism, which is something Joe Biden knows a little bit about. And I think the American people
just
know
called them
this is a
plagiarists.
president who has put
They just said he
America
pla-
first, and the American people, I believe with my heart, can be
Thank you,
proud
Vice
of the
President
sacrifices they have made. It's saved
Thank you,
countless
Vice
American
President
lives.
Senator Harris.
Wow.
Would you like to respond?
Absolutely. Whatever the vice president
I mean,
is claiming, the
honestly,
administration
Syrian, it's
has done,
about-
clearly it hasn't worked.
It's a
When you're looking
case
at
of
over
individual choices.
210,000 dead bodies in our country, American lives.
10,000 out of
That belong to
350
families that are
or
grieving
25 million.
that loss.
325
You
million.
know, the vice president is the head of the task force and knew on January 28th how serious this was. And then, thanks to Bob Woodward, we learned that they knew about it. And then when that was exposed, the vice president said, when asked, well, why didn't y'all tell anybody? He said, because the president wanted people to remain calm.
Yes.
Well, let's get
So
about
no,
Yes.
Susan, this is important.
Susan,
and
I
I
have
want
to
to add,
weigh
but
in
if,
here.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking.
I have to
I'm
weigh in.
speaking.
Yeah, you
So
can have
I
15 more
wanna-
seconds, and then we'll give the Vice President
Thank
a
you.
chance to
So I
respond.
want to ask the American people, how calm were you when you were panicked about where you're going to get your next roll of toilet paper?
We were going to
How
be
calm
fine
were you
if you
when your
didn't
kids
feed
were
the
sent home from
information
school and you didn't
to an
know when you
emotionally
would go back?
immature
How calm
audience.
were you
Thank
when
you,
your
Senator
children
Harris.
couldn't see your parents because you were afraid they could kill them?
Let's give Vice President Pence a chance to respond. Vice President Pence, you have 1 minute to
You
respond.
know, there's not a day gone by that I haven't thought of every American family that's lost a loved one. And I want all of you to know that you'll always be in our hearts and in our prayers. But when you say what the American people have done over these last 8 months hasn't worked, that's a great disservice to the sacrifices the American people have made.
I'm referring
The
to you,
reality,
Madam
if I may finish, Senator, the reality is, Dr. Fauci said, everything
Harris,
that he told
you're looking like an
in
ass
the
right
Oval
now.
Office, the president told the American people. Now, President Trump,
I'm gonna
I will
grab
tell you,
a-
has boundless confidence.
Okay,
in
I'm gonna
American
s-
people, and
I'm gonna
he
grab
has
this Hot
confidence we'll get
Pocket
through this
thing
together.
And pretend
You
this
say
is
it
a
has-
get out of jail free pass. Harris.
Dr. Fauci
Here,
and Dr.
here,
Birx and
take
our
this
medical
like
experts came to us
slightly
in the second week
greasy,
of March.
slightly
They
buttery
said if the president didn't
Hot
take the
Pocket
impressive
get out of jail
step
free card.
of shutting down roughly half of the American economy, that we could lose 2.2 million Americans. Now, that's the reality.
Thank you.
They also
Thank you,
said
Vice
to us,
President
if we did
Pence.
everything right, Susan, we could still lose more than 200,000 Americans.
Vice
Now,
President
one
Pence.
life lost is
Thank
too
you.
many, Susan. But the American people, I believe, deserve credit for the sacrifices that they have made, putting the health of their family and their neighbors first, our doctors, our nurses, our first
Thank you, Vice
responders.
President Pence.
And I'm going to speak up on behalf of what the American people have done.
Vice President Pence, you were in the front row in a Rose Garden event 11 days ago at what seems to have been a super spreader
Here's the
event
thing,
for senior
okay?
administration and congressional officials.
People are going to
No
be people.
social
They're going to do
distancing,
stupid shit.
few masks, and now a cluster
Now,
of
let me
coronavirus
ask you
cases
this.
among those who were there. How can you expect Americans
me ask
to
you this,
follow
okay?
the administration's safety guidelines to protect themselves from COVID?
Can you really
You at the White
see
House
these
have not
people,
done
right,
so.
who go out without masks,
American people
who go out and party in large groups,
over the last 8 months.
and then tell me that these
They've been
people
given the
should be
facts. They're willing to
given
help
information
their
that are
families and
clearly
neighbors
not
they don't even know.
emotionally capable of comprehending and
Trump and I have
processing?
great confidence in the American people
You know,
and their ability.
say that it doesn't induce panic is an
put it into
accurate
practice.
statement.
In the height of the epidemic, when we were losing a heartbreaking number of 2,000
look at all the
Americans
emotionally immature
surged
people on
resources
Twitter.
to New Jersey and New York,
On
and
Facebook.
New Orleans, and Detroit. We told the American
In
people what
Antifa.
needed to be done, and the American people made the sacrifices.
In
When the
BLM,
outbreak in the Sun Belt happened this summer, again,
various
Americans stepped
other
forward.
groups that are
But the
quote unquote
reality is the work
activists.
of the President of the
And
United
then
States goes on.
look at all the people
The
who
vacancy on the
hoarded
Supreme Court of the United
in
States
panic.
Has come upon
And
us,
then
and the President introduced Judge
tell
Amy
me-
Barrett.
Thank you, Vice
Tell
President.
me-
At
Yes.
that, if I may say, that Rose Garden event, there's been a
And
great deal of
let
speculation
me ask you,
about it.
and tell
My
me,
wife,
tell me,
Karen,
are these
over there,
people
and honored to
mature
be
enough
there.
to handle
Many
information
of the
like
people
that?
who were at that event, Susan, actually were tested
Yes.
for coronavirus, and it was an outdoor event, which all of our scientists regularly and routinely advise. The difference here is President Trump and I trust the American people to make choices in the best interest of their health. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris consistently talk about mandates, and not just mandates with the coronavirus, but a government takeover of health care,
Thank
the
you, Vice
Green New
President Pence.
Deal, all government control. We're about freedom and respecting the freedom of the American people.
Let's talk about respecting the American people. You respect the American people when you tell them the truth. You respect the American people when you have the courage
Which we've
to be a
always
leader
done.
speaking of those things that you may not want people to hear, but they need to hear so they can protect themselves.
They can't,
But this
though,
administration
Harris.
stood on information that if you had as a
They
parent,
can't, though,
if you had
Harris.
as a worker, knowing you didn't have enough money
Look at
saved up,
all
and now
the
you're
bunches
standing
of
in a
people.
food line because of the ineptitude
No.
of an administration.
We have that
that's
food
unwilling to
line
speak the truth to the
because
American people.
the fake news
let's
media
talk about caring
gave them
about
the
the American people.
information
The American
they were not
people
emotionally
are suffering
capable
too
of
much
processing.
because of the incompetence of this administration. It is asking too much of the people.
Susan, we talked
No,
about
Vice
It
this.
is
President
asking
Pence.
too much of the people.
Let-
That they would not be equipped with the information they need to help themselves to protect
Susan,
their
the
parents
President-
and
No,
their
I'm sorry.
children.
Kamala Harris, Senator Harris, I'm sorry.
It's
I
fine,
meant
I'm
to say-
Kamala.
No, you're Senator Harris to me.
Okay.
For life to get back to normal, Dr. Anthony Fauci and other experts say that most of the people who can be vaccinated need to be vaccinated. But half of Americans now say
I
they wouldn't.
am
be
loath to
vaccinated
admit it,
if
Donald
it
Trump.
happens now. If the
He's
Trump
already
administration approves
served
a vaccine
my
before or
agenda
after
to
the election,
almost
would
extreme
Americans
perfection,
take it, and would you take
and now I'm just I'm
If the
intending for it to
public health
expand 4 more
professionals,
years.
If Dr. Fauci, if the doctors tell us that we should take it, I'll be the first in line to take it. Absolutely. But if Donald
You
Trump
and I
tells
both,
us
Harris.
that we should take it, I'm not taking it.
Wait,
Vice
seriously?
President Pence, there have been a lot of repercussions.
Seriously?
from this
Kamala,
pandemic.
did you seriously
In recent days,
say
the
that?
president's diagnosis of COVID-19
Are you
has
trying to
underscored
bury the
importance
integrity of your
of the
argument?
job that you hold and that you
Who do you
execute.
think hired
That's our second
Fauci,
topic tonight.
Harris?
It's the role of the vice president.
Your snide,
One of you will make
condescending
history
attitude
on
is
January
pissing me
20th.
off, Harris.
You will be the vice president to the oldest president the United States has ever had. Donald Trump will be 74 years old on Inauguration Day. Joe Biden will be 78 years old. That already has raised concerns among some voters, concerns that have been sharpened by President Trump's hospitalization in recent days. Vice President Pence, have you had a conversation or reached an agreement with President Trump about safeguards or procedures when it comes to the issue of presidential disability? And if not, do you think you should? You have 2 minutes without interruption.
Well, Susan, thank you, although I would like to go back.
I think we need to move on
well,
to the
thank
issue
you,
of
but I would like to
vice
go back
presidency.
because the reality is that we're going to have a vaccine, Senator, in record time, in unheard of time, in less than a year. We have 5 companies in phase 3 clinical trials, and we're right now producing tens of millions of doses. So the fact that you continue to undermine public confidence in a
You and I
vaccine,
both, man.
if the vaccine
You got to
emerges
understand
during the
that
Trump
politicians you
administration, I
vote
think
for
is-
should always
is
come from within.
unconscionable. And Senator, I
You
just
should
ask
always look out for your own best
stop
interests.
playing politics with people's lives. The reality is that we will have a vaccine, we believe, before the end of this year. And it will have the capacity to save countless American lives. And your continuous undermining of confidence in a vaccine is just, it's just unacceptable.
Okay, seriously,
Let me
cameraman,
also say,
fix your shit.
You know, the reality is when you talk about failure in this administration, we actually do know what failure looks like in a pandemic. It was 2009. The swine flu arrived in the United States. Thankfully, it ended up not being as lethal as the coronavirus. But before the end of the year, when Joe Biden was vice president of the United States,
Hey, here's a
not
question, guys.
7.5 million
Who looks
people
sleepier,
contracted
Joe
this.
Biden or Kamala Harris?
60 million Americans contracted the swine flu. If the swine flu had been as lethal as the coronavirus, in 2009, when Joe Biden was vice president, we would have lost 2 million American lives. His own chief of staff, Ron Klain, would say last year that it was pure
Brutal,
luck
Mike. Brutal.
that they did, quote, everything possible wrong. And
Mike, the
we
Butcher
learned from that.
Pence.
They left the strategic national stockpile empty.
Make this a
They
trend.
left an empty and hollow.
Just call him Mike the
We
Butcher
still learn
Pence.
from it, and I think
Vice
the
President
American
Pence, your
people,
time is
I'm going
up.
to say again, can be
Vice
proud
President Pence, I'm sorry,
of
your
what
time
we
is
have
up.
done. And Senator, please
Thank you, Vice
stop
President
undermining
Pence.
confidence in a vaccine.
Senator Harris, let me ask you the same question that I asked
Sure.
Vice President Pence, which is, have you had a conversation or reached an agreement with Vice President Biden about safeguards or procedures when it comes to the issue of presidential
what
disability?
Kamala
And if
has to
not,
offer.
and if you win the election next month, do you think you should? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
So let me tell you, first of all,
Okay,
the day
Pence
I
has
got
not been
the call
uninterrupted,
from
by
Joe
the way.
Biden, it was actually a Zoom call.
Oh, God.
As
Are
he
you
agreed
serious?
to serve with him on
You
the
have
Senate, it was probably one of the most
Skype
memorable
and Discord as
things.
alternate options.
Um,
Why is everybody using Zoom?
I thought about my mother, who came to the United States at the age of 19, gave birth to me at the age of 25 at Kaiser Hospital in Oakland, California. And
Why?
I thought that I'd be
What
sitting
does this
here
have
right
to do
now,
with anything?
I know would make her proud, and she must be looking down on this.
I can agree with
You know,
that,
Joe
though. I can
and
agree
were
that
raised
she
a
would
very
be proud.
similar way. We were
Kamala
raised
Harris
with
has
values
gone
that were
far,
about hard work,
no matter whether I like her
about
or her
the
policies or not.
value and the dignity of public service, and about the importance of fighting for the dignity of all people. And I think Joe
Exactly,
asked me to serve with
Siri.
him because
You have to be
you know,
true
I
to
have
yourself.
a career that included being elected the
The
first
only
woman
way we
district
can
attorney
strike a
in San
common
Francisco,
accord is if we
where
come
I created
to that
models
common
of
understanding.
innovation for law enforcement in terms of
Yes, it
reform of
is.
the criminal justice system. I was
Zoom is
elected,
what boomers
the
think
first,
good technology.
woman of color and black woman. to
No
be
one
elected
cares,
Attorney General of the
Kamala.
state of California,
Nobody
where I
cares
ran
whether
the
you're a
second
woman
largest
or
Department
a
of Justice
person
in
of
the United
color.
States,
You're
second only to
missing the
Department
fucking
of Justice.
point.
And there I took on
Yeah.
everything from transnational criminal organizations to the big banks that were taking advantage of homeowners to for-profit.
You're
colleges
also
that were
putting a
taking
lot of
advantage
black people in
veterans.
prison,
And
Kamala.
then, of course, now I serve in the United States Senate as only the second black woman ever elected to the United States Senate. I serve on the Senate Intelligence Committee, where I've been in
Kamala, for
regular
fuck's
pursuit
sake,
of
quit bragging
classified
about your
information about
service.
threats to our nation and hotspots around the world. I've traveled the world. I've met with our soldiers in war zones. And I think Joe has asked me to serve with him because he knows that we share.
No,
We
he
share
asked
a
you to
purpose,
serve with
which is
him
about lifting up the
because it was
American
his
people.
strategy
And after the 4
to cover
years
up his
that we've
racist
seen of Donald Trump
inclinations
unifying our country around
and to
our
appeal
common
to the
values.
egocentrists.
Thank you, Senator Harris. You know, neither President Trump
Because
nor Vice
both
President
you
Biden has released a
and
detailed
both
health
you and Obama
information
are
that had
token
become the modern norm
representation.
until the 2016 election.
To make
And in
people
recent
feel
days,
good
President Trump's doctors
inside.
have given misleading answers or refused to answer basic questions. about
Pretty
health.
much, yeah.
And my question to each of you in turn is this information voters deserve to know? Vice President Pence, would you like to go first?
Well, Susan, thank you. And let me say, on behalf of the President and the First Lady, how moved we've all been by the outpouring of prayers and concern for the President. And I do believe it's emblematic of the prayers and the concern that have ushered forth for every American impacted by the coronavirus. But the care the President received at Walter Reed Hospital, the White House doctors was exceptional. And the transparency that they practiced all along the way will continue. The American people have a right to know about the health and well-being of their president, and will continue to do that. But I'm just extremely grateful and was more than a little moved by the broad and bipartisan support. And Senator, I want to thank you and Joe Biden for your expressions of genuine concern. And I also want to congratulate you, as I did on that phone call, on the historic nature of your nomination.
Thank you.
Wow, some
I
politeness.
never expected to
Nice.
be on this stage 4 years ago, so I know the feeling. But the reality is, we've got an election before the American people in the midst of this challenging year, and the stakes have never been higher. But I think the choice has never been clearer.
I want to give Senator Harris a chance to respond to the same question I asked, which is, do voters have a right to know more detailed health information about presidential candidates, and especially about presidents, especially when they're facing some kind of challenge?
Absolutely, and that's why Joe Biden has been so incredibly transparent, and certainly by contrast,
Transparent about what?
the president has not.
Transparent?
Both in terms of health
Or
records,
just
but also
utterly
let's look at
obscure?
taxes. We now know, because of great investigative journalism, that Donald Trump paid $750 in taxes. When I first heard about it, I literally said, "You mean $750,000?" And it was like, "No, $750."
Oh, no.
We now know Donald Trump owes and is in debt for $400 million. And just so everyone is
Obviously.
clear, when we say in
It
debt,
just makes
means
people
you owe money to
unlikable in
somebody.
general.
And it'd be really good to know who the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, owes money to, because the American people have a right to know.
They owe money to the
what is
IRS.
influencing the President's decisions. And is he making those decisions on the best interest of the American people, of you, or self-interest? So, Susan, I'm glad
You
you
make
asked that, Pence,
self-interest
because
sound
it has to be
inherently
across the board.
negative.
Joe has been incredibly transparent.
How
over
disingenuous
many,
are
many
you?
years. The one thing we all know about Joe, he puts it all out there. He is honest, he is forthright, but Donald Trump,
Have you
on the
seen
other
his
hand, has
Twitter?
been about covering up everything.
Thank you, Senator Harris. I want to give you a chance to respond, Vice President.
Well, look, I respect the fact that Joe Biden spent 47 years in public life. I respect your public service as well.
Thank you.
The American people have a president who's a businessman, he's a job creator, who's paid tens of millions of dollars in taxes, payroll taxes, property taxes. He's created tens of thousands of American jobs. And the president said those public reports are not accurate. And the president's also released literally stacks of financial disclosures the American people can review just as the law allows. But the distinction here is that Joe Biden, 47 years in public service, compared to President Donald Trump, who brought all of that experience 4 years ago.
Thank you, Vice
And
President.
turned this economy around by cutting taxes, rolling back regulation, unleashing
Vice
American
President
energy,
Pence.
fighting for free and fair trade, and all of that's
Thank you,
on the
Vice
line
President
if
Pence.
Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
You know, that's a
in
good
the White
segue into our third
great
topic,
segue.
which is about the economy. This has been another aspect
Yeah.
of life for Americans that's been so affected by this coronavirus. We have a jobs crisis brewing. On Friday, we learned that the unemployment rate had declined to 7.9%.
I swear, though, once I start getting into
but
the
job growth
debates.
had stalled, and that was before the latest round of
No.
layoffs
I actually
in the
like that,
airline industry
Siri.
at Disney and elsewhere.
I actually
Hundreds of
like
thousands
that.
of
There's
discouraged
a
workers have stopped
semblance
looking for work. Nearly 11
of
million
civility
jobs that
here.
existed at the beginning of the year haven't
This I
been
can appreciate.
replaced. Those hardest hit include Latinos, blacks, and women.
The
Senator Harris,
Telemundo
the Biden
polls have like
campaign has proposed new
66%
programs
in
to
favor of
boost the economy,
Trump.
and you would pay for that
The
by spending
Telemundo
by
polls,
raising $4 trillion
66%
on
in
wealthy
favor of
individuals
Trump.
and corporations.
How can you deny that?
Some economists warn that could curb entrepreneurial ventures that fuel growth and create jobs. Would raising taxes put the recovery at risk? And you have 2 minutes to answer uninterrupted.
Thank you. On the issue of the economy, I think there couldn't be a more fundamental difference between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Joe Biden
has
believes
nothing.
you measure the health and the strength of America's economy based on the health and the strength of the American worker and the American family.
To
On
be
the other
fair, a
hand,
lot of
you have Donald
those,
Trump, who measures the strength of the
to be
economy
fair, a lot of those
based
were
on how
Pence
rich people are doing.
complimenting her, so
Which is
give her a
why
little
he
room
passed
for
a
wiggle.
tax bill benefiting the top 1% and the biggest corporations of America, leading to a $2 trillion deficit that the American people are going to have to pay for.
Kamala,
On day
that's
one,
historically
Joe Biden
disingenuous.
will repeal that tax bill. He'll get rid of it. And what he'll do with the money is invest it in the American people. And through a plan that is about investing
put it
in
into his
infrastructure,
pockets.
something that Donald Trump said he would do. I remember hearing about some infrastructure week. I don't think it ever happened. But Joe Biden will do that. He'll invest in infrastructure. It's about upgrading our roads and bridges, but also investing in clean energy and renewable energy. Joe is going to invest that
Wait,
money
are you
in what we
referring
need
to
do
Susan or are you referring to
innovation.
Kamala?
There was a time when our country believed in science and invested in research and development so that we were an innovation leader on the globe. Joe Biden will use that money to invest in education.
No, he
So,
won't.
for example, for folks who want to go to a 2-year community college, it will be free. If you come from a family that makes less than $125,000, you'll go to a public university for free.
Yeah, exactly.
And across the board, we'll make sure that if you have student loan debt, it's cut by $10,000. That's how Joe Biden thinks about the economy, which is it's about investing in the people of our country as opposed to
Kamala,
passing a tax bill, which had the
you have no
benefit
idea
of
how
letting
low.
American corporations
Hold on.
go offshore. Their
Hold on.
business.
She says that he's investing in the future by putting people in college. But what about the college turnout rates per college?
The latest economic report suggests that's not happening.
Can you
Should
measure that?
Americans be braced for an economic comeback that is going to take not months, but a year or more? You have 2 minutes to answer uninterrupted.
When President Trump and I took office, America had gone through the slowest economic recovery since the Great Depression. It's when Joe Biden was vice president, they tried to tax and spend and regulate and bail our way back to a growing economy. President Trump cut taxes across the board. Despite what Senator Harris says, the average American family of four had $2,000 in savings in taxes. And with the rise in wages that occurred, most predominantly for blue-collar, hardworking Americans, the average household income for a family of four increased by $4,000 following President Trump's tax cuts. But America, you just heard Senator Harris tell you, on day one, Joe Biden's going to raise your taxes. It's really remarkable to think, Susan. I mean, right after
It sort of is, though.
the time where we're going through a pandemic that lost 22 million jobs at the height, we've already added back 11.
I don't know either. I don't understand how
because
every
we had
piece
a
of the
president who
algorithm
cut
works.
taxes, rolled back regulation, unleashed American energy, fought for free and fair trade, and secured $4 trillion from the Congress of the United States to give direct payments to families, save 50 million jobs through the Paycheck Protection Program.
Yep.
We literally have spared no expense to help the American people and the American
triple
workers
P.
through this. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris want to raise taxes. They want to bury our economy under a $2 trillion Green New Deal, which you were one of the original co-sponsors of in the United States Senate. They want to abolish fossil fuels and ban fracking, which would cost hundreds of thousands of American jobs all across the heartland. And Joe Biden wants to go back to the economic surrender to China, that when we took office, half of our international trade deficit was with China alone. And Joe Biden wants to repeal all of the tariffs that President Trump put into effect to fight for American jobs and American workers. Joe Biden says democracy's on the ballot. Make no mistake about it, Susan. The American economy, the American comeback is on the ballot with 4 more years of growth and opportunity, 4 more years of President Donald Trump. 2021 is going to be the biggest economic year in the history of this country.
Thank you, Vice President Pence. Senator Harris.
Well, I mean, I thought we saw enough of it in last week's debate, but I think this is supposed to be a debate based on fact.
Exactly. It's very
And
inconsistent.
the fact is, Joe Biden has been very clear. He will not raise taxes on anybody who makes less than $400,000 a year.
He said he's going to repeal the Trump tax cuts.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking.
Sorry.
Well, wait.
I'm speaking.
It'd be important if you said the truth. Joe Biden said twice in the debate last week that he's going to repeal the Trump tax cuts. That was tax cuts that gave the average working family $2,000 in a tax break every single year. Senator,
that is
that's the math.
absolutely not true. That
Is he only going to repeal part of the Trump tax cuts?
If you don't mind letting me finish, we can then have a conversation, okay?
Please.
Okay. Joe Biden will not raise taxes on anyone who makes less than $400,000 a year. He has been very clear about that. Joe Biden will not end fracking. He has been very clear about that. Joe Biden is the one who, during the Great Recession,
Empty
was
promises.
responsible for the Recovery Act that brought America back. And now the
No, he didn't.
Pence administration wants to take credit.
No, that's not how it works.
They
This
wrote
is not a
the
Martin Van Buren
of Joe
situation.
Biden's success for the economy that
Do
they
you
had at the
even
beginning of their
mention
term. Of course,
the concept of
they
Martin Van
told us it was a
Buren?
disaster. But Joe Biden, on the one hand, did that. On the other hand, you have Donald Trump.
No,
who
you
has
can't tell me
reigned
that.
over
When
a
you put
recession that is being compared to
Obamacare,
the
you
Great
can't
Depression.
say that you.
On the one hand,
you can't take
Joe
credit when you put the
who
Affordable Care
was
Act,
responsible
a
with
$1 trillion
President
program
Obama
that
for the
nearly
Affordable Care
crippled
Act, which brought
an entire
healthcare to
third of the
over
country.
20 million Americans and protected people.
Yes,
in pre-existing conditions.
Friday or
What it also
Saturday.
did,
Possibly
saved
both.
those families who otherwise were going bankrupt because of hospital bills they could not afford. On the other hand, you have
Yeah, and
Donald
we
Trump
could
who's in court
afford-
right now trying to get rid of
Thank you, Senator
trying to
Harris.
get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which means that you will lose protections if you have pre-existing conditions. And this is very important, Susan.
Yes,
and it's
but
important.
we need to give Vice President.
I'd
Pence a
just like
chance
to,
to
he
respond.
interrupted me, and I'd like to just finish, please. If you have a pre-existing condition,
I
heart
do.
disease, diabetes, breast cancer,
I
they're
have it.
coming for you.
No, they're not.
If you
Kamala.
love someone who has a pre-existing
nonsense.
condition,
Thank
they're
you, Senator
coming
Harris.
for you. If you are under the age of 26 on your parents' coverage, they're coming for you.
Senator Harris, thank you.
You're
Let
welcome.
me give you a chance to respond.
Well, I hope we have a chance to talk about health care because Obamacare was a disaster. The American
Thank
people
you!
were- and President Trump and I have a plan to improve health care and to protect pre-existing conditions for every American. But look, Senator Harris, you're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. You yourself said on multiple occasions
Wow, that
when
was
you were running
brilliant! That was a brilliant way of saying that, Pence.
Joe Biden,
You are
who
entitled
was
to your
supporting
own
the
opinion, but you're not
pointed and
entitled
said,
to your
"I
own
guarantee-
facts.
I guarantee
Well
abolish
fucking
fossil fuels."
played.
They
Not
have $2
even I
trillion
could come up with a better
Green New
argument
Deal
than
system
that.
Your newspaper,
Well
USA Today,
fucking
said
played.
Really wasn't that very different from the original Green New Deal. More taxes.
Not just a
more
home run, a
regulation,
grand fucking
banning
slam.
fracking, abolishing fossil fuel, crushing American energy, and economic surrender to China is a prescription for economic decline. President Trump and I will keep America growing. The V-shaped recovery that's underway right now will continue with 4 more years of President Donald Trump in the White House.
Thank you very, very much, Vice President Pence. Once again, you've provided the perfect segue to a new topic, which is climate
God
change.
damn, he's
And Vice President Pence, I'd like to
controlling the entire narrative.
to you.
He keeps coming up with the
We've seen
segues.
record-setting
He's
hurricanes
doing-
in the South. Another
He's
one
doing what the moderators told for.
and we have seen record-setting wildfires in the West. Do you believe, as the scientific
He's
community has
beating
concluded,
both Harris and the moderator with ease.
wildfires
Oh my
bigger,
god!
hotter, and more
He's
deadly,
giving her a
and made
jump
hurricanes wetter,
forward. That's
slower,
amazing.
and more damaging?
Oh
We
my
have 2
god!
minutes uninterrupted.
Thank you, Susan.
I'm so glad this
We're very
dude
proud
is
of
the
our
vice
record on
president.
environment and on conservation. According to all of the best estimates, our air and land are cleaner than any
Keep in
time
phrase,
ever
he-
recorded.
mine uses the
Our water is
phrase
among the cleanest in the
Estimates, so don't take
world.
it
And
like
just
a
a little while
full.
ago, the president signed the
thing,
Outdoors
so
Act. It's the
keep that in
largest
mind.
investment in our public lands and public
Keep that in
parks
mind.
in 100 years. So President Trump has made a commitment to conservation and to the environment. Now, with regard to climate change, the climate is changing. But the issue is, what's the cause and what do we do about it? President Trump has made it clear that we're going to continue to listen to the science. Now, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris would put us back in the Paris Climate Accord. They'd impose the Green New Deal, which would crush American energy, would increase the energy costs of American families in their homes, and literally would crush American jobs, families. And President Trump and I believe that the progress that we have made in a
They
cleaner
are. They
environment
very much
has
are.
been happening precisely because we have a strong free market economy. You know, what's remarkable is the United States has reduced CO2 more than the countries that are still in the Paris Climate Accord, but we've done it through innovation, and we've done it through natural gas and fracking which, Senator, the American people can go look at the record. I know Joe Biden says otherwise now, as you do, but the both of you repeatedly
that's
committed
a little
to
sarcasm.
abolishing fossil fuel and banning of fracking. And so by creating the kind of American innovation, we're actually steering toward a stronger and better environment. With regard to wildfires, President Trump and I believe that forest management has to be front and center, and even Governor Gavin Newsom from your state has agreed we've got to work on forest management. And with regard to hurricanes, the National Oceanic Administration tells us that actually as difficult as they are,
Thank you, Vice President.
there are no more hurricanes today than
Thank
there
you.
were 100 years ago.
Thank you,
Many of
Pence.
the climate alarmists
President Pence,
use
I'm sorry, your time
hurricanes
is up.
and wildfires to try and
Thank
sell
you,
their
Vice
bill of
President
goods of a
Pence.
Green New Deal. And President Trump and I are going to always put
Thank you,
American
Vice
jobs and
President
American
Pence.
workers first.
Senator Harris, as
One
the Vice
weakness of
President, you
Pence's
posed
debate is
the
he's running way over time.
But Vice President Biden
He's
said in last
given
week's
2
debate that
minutes and he
does not
runs
support
about
the Green New Deal.
3.5 to 4.
But if you look at the Biden-Harris campaign website, it describes the Green New Deal as a crucial framework. What exactly would be the stance of a Biden-Harris administration toward the Green New Deal? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Sure.
Nothing much,
first of
anime,
all,
Malaysia.
I will repeat.
We're
the
seeing a
American people
wonderful
know
debate
that
here
Joe Biden
filled with
will
a
not
lot
ban
more decorum
fracking.
than the
That is
first.
a fact. That is a fact.
No,
I will
Harris, no.
repeat that Joe Biden has been very clear that he thinks about growing jobs, which is why he will not increase taxes for anyone who makes less than $400,000 a year. Joe Biden's economic plan, Moody's, which is a reputable Wall Street firm, has said will create 7 million more jobs than Donald Trump's. And part of those jobs that will be created by Joe Biden are going to
You're
be
quoting Wall
about
Street.
clean energy and renewable energy.
But I can't
Because
help
you see, Joe understands
but feel like
that the West
Kamala
Coast of our
Harris's
country
perspective
burning,
is a
including
bit
my home
elitist.
state of California. Joe sees what is happening on the
she
Gulf
focuses
states,
way too
which are being
much
battered
on
by
speaking
storms.
against
Joe
Trump,
has seen and talked with
whereas Pence
farmers in
seems to
Iowa.
really look in
His
the
entire
camera
crops have been
and
destroyed
speak to
because
the
of
American
floods.
people.
And so Joe believes, again,
There's
in
2
science.
separate
I'll tell you
tones here.
something, Susan. I served, when I first got to the Senate, on the committee that's responsible for the environment. Do you know this administration took the word science off the website and then took the phrase climate change off the website? We have seen a pattern with this administration, which is they don't believe in science. And Joe's plan is about
Coming
saying, we're
from
gonna
the
do this,
person
but we're also going to create
who
jobs.
believes you can choose your own
Donald Trump,
gender.
When asked about the wildfires in California,
I don't mind people
and
who
the
identify
question
as
was,
something,
the science
but
is
for
telling us,
fuck's
you know
sake,
what Donald
don't
Trump
pose
said? Science
gender
doesn't
as a
know.
social construct.
So let's talk about who is prepared
Gender
to
is
lead
not a
our
social
country
construct.
over the course of the next
There's
4
a difference
years
between
on what is an
identification and
existential threat
actual
to us as human
actual
beings.
physical
Joe
presence.
is about saying we're going to invest that in renewable energy. It's going to be about the creation of millions of jobs. We will achieve net
I am
zero
for
emissions by
people identifying
2050,
whatever they want,
carbon neutral by 2035.
but don't
Joe has a
pose
plan.
yourself as a fact
This has been a
speaker
lot of talk from the
when you're
Trump
associated with a
administration, and really
platform that
it's
thinks
been to
gender
go
is a social
backwards instead of
construct.
forward. We will also re-enter the climate agreement with pride.
Senator Harris just said that
I don't
climate change
want
is an existential
our
threat.
country to join the
Vice
Paris.
President Pence, do you believe
climate
that climate
agreement.
change poses an existential threat?
As I said, Susan, the climate is changing. We'll follow the science. But once again, Senator Harris is denying the fact that they're going to raise taxes on every American. Joe Biden said twice in the debate last week that on day
Scott
one
here.
it was going to repeal the Trump tax cuts.
It's got it by
Those
the
tax
throat.
cuts delivered $2,000 in tax relief to the average family of 4 across America. And with regard to banning fracking, I just recommend that people look at the record. You yourself said repeatedly that you would ban fracking. You were the first Senate co-sponsor of the Green New Deal.
She's
While
right,
Joe
or
Biden
he's right.
denied the Green New Deal. Susan, thank you for pointing out the Green New Deal is on their campaign website. And as USA Today said, it's essentially the same plan as you co-sponsored with AOC when she submitted it in the Senate. And you just heard the senator say that she's going to resubmit America to the Paris Climate Accord. Look,
Oh yeah, she's
the American
burying
people
herself.
have always cherished our environment. We'll continue to cherish it. We've made great progress reducing CO2 emissions through American innovation and the development of natural gas through fracking. We don't need a massive $2 trillion Green New Deal that would impose all new mandates on American businesses and American families.
Thank you.
Joe Biden wants us to
Vice
retrofit
President Pence.
4 million
Thank you, Vice
American
President
business
Pence.
buildings. It makes no sense. It will
Exactly.
cost jobs. President
Again,
Trump
Thank
is
you,
going to
Vice
put
President.
America
I am
first.
not
He's going to put
for
jobs
opposing
first, and he's gonna
identification.
take care of our
We
environment.
live in
and
a
follow
wonderful
the
country
Thank
that's
you.
about
No,
freely
honestly,
identifying and
Senator Harris.
Let's
expressing
talk
yourself.
about that. The vice president earlier referred to, as part of what he thinks is an accomplishment, the
Today,
president's
Junior.
trade war with China. You lost that trade war. You
No, they
lost it.
didn't. No, they didn't.
What ended up happening is because of a so-called trade war with China, America lost 300,000 manufacturing jobs.
No,
Farmers
they won.
have experienced
those jobs.
bankruptcy because of it. We are in
Don't
a
forget that we
manufacturing
also
recession
are now our own
because
oil
of it.
producers.
And when we look
Please,
at
Biden,
where
just
this
mention the
administration
oil
has been,
production.
there are estimates that
Look
by
at the
end
lowering of
term
gas
this
prices across the
administration,
country.
They will have lost more jobs
We have
than almost
had
any other presidential
We've paid
administration.
less
And
money
the American
per
people know what I'm
gallon
talking
in my
about.
state
You know.
than
I
George
think about
Bush's
20-year-olds.
era.
You know, we have a 20-year-old.
We paid
a
$2.29 a
20-something-year-old
gallon
who are coming out of high
for
school and
gas.
college right now, and you're wondering, is there going to be a job
because of
there
that trade
for me?
war.
We're looking at people who are trying to figure out.
I don't think it's
how
weird.
they're
I
gonna pay
think
rent
it's-
by the end of the month. Almost half.
I think
of
it's the
American
fact that we
households
have
are
a
worried
similar
about
liberal
whether they're gonna
mindset.
Be able to pay rent by the end of the month.
The thing I stand
This
for
where
is
the
life,
economy is in
liberty, and the
America right
pursuit of
now, And it
happiness.
is because of the catastrophe and the failure of leadership of this administration.
I
Thank you,
do
Senator.
admire Pence's restraint.
Vice President Pence, let me give you just 15 seconds to respond because then
I mean, yeah, fair enough.
I'd love to respond. Look, lost the
Fair enough.
trade war with China. Joe Biden never fought it. Joe Biden has been a cheerleader for communist China through over the last several decades. And again, Senator Harris, you're entitled to your opinion. You're not entitled to your own facts. When Joe Biden was vice
I'm
president,
probably sure they don't.
200,000 manufacturing jobs.
I'm not
And
exactly
President Obama
sure
said they were
how
never coming back.
Genshin
He said we need
Impact
a magic wand to
functions.
bring them back. In our first 3
For-
years after
I
the
focus on the
cutbacks,
story and the
rollback
mechanics.
regulation, unleashed American energy, this administration saw 500,000
Thank you, Vice
manufacturing
President
jobs
Pence.
created. And that's exactly the kind of growth we're going to continue to see as we bring our nation through
Thank you, Vice
this
President
pandemic.
Pence.
But a
Mr.
Green New
Thank you,
Deal, your
Vice
massive
President
new
Pence.
mandates, your Paris Climate Accord, it's going to kill jobs this time, just like it killed jobs.
I'd like
Susan,
to-
I just need to respond very briefly.
15
please.
seconds, and
Thank
then
you.
we'll move
Thank you. Joe Biden is responsible for saving America's auto industry, and you voted against it.
Bailing out
let's
is
set
not
the record
saving the auto industry.
I'd like to talk
You
about
bailed out
China.
one
We have
company.
as our next
You bailed out General
we have
Motors.
no more complicated or consequential foreign relationship
It's
than
got
the one with
Genshin's
China.
got a bit of
It
a
is
few
a
strengths.
huge market for American agricultural goods.
There are some
It's
things
a
I don't really
potential
like
partner
Paimon,
dealing with climate
but-
change in North Korea. And in a video tonight, President Trump again blamed it for the coronavirus, saying China will pay. Vice President Pence, how would you describe our fundamental relationship with China? Competitors, adversaries, enemies?
Ooh, that's a very good question. I like that question.
Thank you, Susan.
That's a good question,
Let me,
man.
before I leave that, let me speak to voting records if I can. You know, everybody knows that NAFTA cost literally thousands of American factories to close. We saw automotive jobs go south of the border. President Trump fought to renegotiate
Yes,
NAFTA.
she is. Yes,
The
she
United
is.
States Mexico-Canada agreement is now the law.
I
of
still
the land.
think she's filled with white chocolate.
American people deserve to know Senator Kamala Harris was one of only 10 members of the Senate to vote against the
I would
USMCA.
say,
It was a huge win for American auto workers.
right?
It was a huge win
love
for
that
American
meme.
farmers, especially dairy in the upper Midwest. But Senator, you
Pence,
said it
Pence,
didn't go
Pence,
far
Pence,
enough on
Pence, hold
climate
on.
Change.
Hold on. Pence,
That you
Pence,
put your,
Pence,
your
Pence.
radical environmental
Tie it
agenda
into the U.S.-China
ahead
relations.
of American auto workers and ahead of American jobs. I think the American people deserve to know that. Is probably why Newsweek magazine said that Kamala Harris was the most liberal member of the United States Senate in 2019. More liberal than Bernie Sanders, more liberal than any of the others in the United States Senate. So now with regard to China, look, Susan, first and foremost,
What do you have as options there, Syrian?
China is to blame for the coronavirus.
Yes, it is.
And President Trump is not happy about it. He's made that very clear, made it clear again today. China and the World Health Organization did not play straight with the American people. They did not let our personnel into China to get information on the coronavirus until the middle of February. Fortunately, President Trump, in dealing with China from the outset of this administration, standing up to China that had been
that explains it
for decades.
That explains
in the wake of Joe Biden's cheerleading for China. President Trump made that
like
decision before
8.
the end of January to suspend all travel from
I'm at
China.
like 8.
And again,
I don't play it often enough.
No, Joe Biden opposed President Trump's decision to suspend all travel from China. He said it was hysterical. He said it was
Thank you, Vice
xenophobic.
President Pence.
But President Trump has
Vice
stood
President Pence,
up
your
to
time is
China.
up.
We're going to continue to stand strong.
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
We want to improve the relationship, but we're going to level the playing field, and we're going to hold
Vice President
China
Pence.
accountable for what they did to America with the coronavirus.
Thank you. Senator Harris, let me ask you the same question that I asked
Hey,
the Vice President.
enemy in Malaysia,
How would you describe
I might
fundamental
actually
relationship
end
with
up
China?
being one
Are we
myself
competitors,
with the next gen.
adversaries, enemies? You'll have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Hopefully
Susan,
uninterrupted.
the Trump administration's perspective and approach to China has resulted in the loss of American lives, American jobs,
What? No!
America's standing.
Are you paying attention to reality?
There's a weird obsession that President Trump has had with getting rid of whatever
I mean, yeah.
was achieved
Talking about next
by
gen.
President Obama and Vice President Biden.
I don't think
example,
I'll be getting a
They
PS5.
created within the White House an office that basically was responsible for monitoring pandemics. They got away, they got rid of it.
Not true.
There was a team of disease experts that President Obama and Vice President Biden dispatched to China to monitor what is now predictable and what might happen. They pulled them out. We now are looking at 210,000 Americans who have lost their lives.
Out of
Let's look
325
at the job
million.
situation. We mentioned before the trade
You
deal.
make this
the
look
trade
like this
war,
big ass
they
deal.
wanted to call it, with China. It resulted in the loss of over 300 manufacturing jobs and a manufacturing recession, and the American consumer paying thousands of dollars more for goods because of that failed war that they called it. Then let's talk about standing. Pew, a reputable research firm, has done an analysis that shows that leaders of all of our formerly allied countries have now decided that they hold in greater esteem and respect Xi Jinping, the head of the Chinese Communist Party, than they do Donald Trump, the president of the United
course,
States,
because
the
he's their
commander-in-chief
cheerleader.
of the United States. This is where we are today because of a failure of leadership by this administration.
No, because Xi Jinping
Senator Harris, we've seen
hates
changes
anybody
in
who
the-
competes with
in the
him.
role of the United States in terms of global leadership over the past 4 years.
Yeah, I don't
And
trust in
times
that.
do change. What's your definition? We've seen strains with
Your
China,
definition.
of course, as the Vice President mentioned. We've seen strains with our traditional allies in NATO and elsewhere.
Yes,
what is your
that's
definition
intentional.
of the role of American leadership in 2020?
So, you know, Joe is, I love talking with Joe about a lot of these issues. And, you know, Joe, I think he said it quite well. He says, you know, foreign policy, it might sound complicated, but really it's relationships. So just think about it as
Yes,
relationships.
that I can agree
And
with.
so we know this in our personal and professional relationships. You got to keep
That's
your
sort
word
of
to your
emblem.
friends.
That's sort of
Got to
emblematic.
be loyal to your
There,
friends.
go
People
on.
who've stood with you, got to stand with them.
Except they
Gotta
didn't
know
stand
who
with
your
us.
adversaries are and keep them in check. But what we have seen with Donald Trump
What you've seen,
is
Kamala
that
Harrison,
he has betrayed
is a
our
paradigm
friends
shift.
and
allies and enemies.
embraced dictators around the world. Let's take, for example, Russia. So, Russia, I serve on the Intelligence Committee of the United States Senate. America's intelligence community told us
Why on earth
Russia
wouldn't...
interfered in the election of the president.
Let
of
me
the United
ask you
States in
this,
2016
Harris.
And is playing
Military
into it.
tactics-wise,
Christopher Wray, the director
who do you want to
of the
support?
FBI, said
A
the
bunch of
same.
ineffectual people
But
who
Donald
can't
Trump, the
move
commander-in-chief
as a
of the
singular
United
unit,
States of America,
or do
first
you
to take the
support
word of
people
Vladimir
with
Putin
superior
over
military
the word of
technology?
the American intelligence community. You look at our friends at NATO.
Yeah, it's
who
true,
walked
anime, but
away
it's kind of
from
the fact.
agreements. You can look at the Iran nuclear deal, which now has put us in a position where we are less safe because they are building up what might end up being
You're the ones who funded them!
arsenal. We were in that deal, guys. We were in the Iran nuclear deal with friends. With
You are the ones that funded them in the
Donald
first
Trump's
place!
unilateral approach to foreign policy, coupled with
How can you
isolation,
pass the buck like that?
he pulled us out and has made America less safe. So, Susan,
He would have
it's
been.
about
They wouldn't
relationships.
be less safe if
And
you
the thing
didn't
that
give
has
them the
always
money to
been
build the
strength of
nukes.
our nation, in addition
You
to our
idiot!
military, has been that we keep
You
our word. But
stinking
Donald Trump
idiot!
doesn't understand that because he doesn't understand what it means to be honest.
Neither do you, Harris.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Vice President Pence, let me give you a chance to respond.
Well, thank you. Well, President Trump kept his word when we moved the American embassy to Jerusalem, the capital of the state of Israel. When Joe Biden was vice president.
Oh, wow, that's a heavy bomb.
We've stood strong with our allies, but we've been demanding. NATO is now contributing more to our common defense than ever before, thanks to President Trump's leadership. We've strengthened our alliances across the Asia-Pacific, and we've stood strong against those who would do us harm. You know, when President Trump came into office,
It's quite clear that each
ISIS
side
had
has
captured
two
an
different
area of the
realities
size
perceived
of
here.
Pennsylvania. But President Trump unleashed the American military, and our armed forces destroyed the ISIS caliphate and took down their
True.
leader al-Baghdadi without one American casualty. Al-Baghdadi was responsible for the death of thousands. But notably, America's hearts today are with the family of Kayla Mueller, her parents of which are here with us tonight in Salt Lake City. Today, two of the ISIS killers responsible for Kayla Mueller's murder were brought to justice in the United
Good.
States.
Good.
Jihadi John was killed on the battlefield along
Good.
with
I'm glad to hear that.
The reality is that
Not really, no,
when Joe Biden
anime.
was vice president, we had an opportunity.
If PCs were universal, why isn't Mary Skelter
Breaks my
2
heart to
on
reflect
Steam?
on it, but the military came into the Oval Office, presented a plan. They said they knew where Kayla was. Baghdadi
I believe
had held her
it
for
does,
18
actually.
months, abused her mercilessly.
I'm going to go pull this up here.
Killed her. But when Joe Biden was vice president, they hesitated for a month. And when armed forces finally went in, it was clear she'd been moved 2 days earlier. And her family says with a heart that broke the heart of every American that if President Donald Trump had been president, they believe Kayla would be alive today.
Thank you, Vice
Look, we
President.
destroyed the ISIS caliphate. And you talk about re-entering the Iran nuclear deal. I mean, the last administration transferred $1.8 billion to the leading state sponsor
Thank you,
of
Pence.
terrorism. President Donald Trump got us out of the deal.
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
And when Qasem Soleimani was traveling to Baghdad
Thank you,
to do
Vice President
harm
Pence.
to Americans, President Donald Trump took
Thank you,
him
Vice
Pence,
out.
Pence, Pence, Pence,
And
Pence.
America is
A little more concise,
safer.
please.
Our allies are safer, and the American people know President Donald Trump.
A little more
will never
concise,
Thank you, Vice
Biden.
President.
Or not
Take
Biden.
I would like to
Pence.
give Senator Harris a chance to respond, but not at such great length because, of course, there are other topics we want to talk
But
about.
I would like equal time.
Yes,
Thank you.
please go ahead.
First of all, to the Mueller family, I know about your daughter's case, and I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. What happened to her is awful.
That
and
I
it should
agree.
have never happened. And I know Joe feels the same way.
But
I know that
you gotta
President Obama
understand
feels the same
that that means that it's not as you
but you
defined
mentioned
it
Soleimani.
as
Let's
universal
start there.
here. There are many,
after
many
the strike on
games
Soleimani,
that were removed
there
from
was a
Steam
counter strike on our troops
because
in
Steam
Iraq.
didn't find it.
And they suffered serious brain injuries. And do you know what Donald Trump dismissed them as? Headaches. And this is about a pattern of Donald Trump's, where he has referred to our men who are serving in our military as suckers and losers.
He did not
Donald
say
Trump
that. That was what the
went to
Atlantic
Arlington
published.
Cemetery and stood above the graves of our fallen heroes and said, what's in it for them? Because, of course, you know, he
Nice
only thinks
book.
about what's in it for him. Let's take what he said about John McCain,
You too, Sharon.
a great American hero.
He was not a
And Donald Trump
Beautiful
says
revisionism
he
there.
doesn't deserve to be called a hero because he was a prisoner of war. And this is very important when you want to talk about who is the current commander-in-chief and what they care about and what they don't care about. Public reporting that Russia had bounties on the
Well, I
heads
can't find out.
of American soldiers. And you know what a bounty is? It's somebody puts a price
Well-
on your head and they will pay it if you are killed. And Donald Trump had
Whoa!
talked at least 6 times to Vladimir Putin and never brought
Oh,
up
great.
the
More
subject.
Russiagate
Joe Biden
conspiracies.
would never do that.
Thank
Joe
you.
Biden would, but Joe Biden
Yeah.
would hold Russia to account for any threat to our nation's security or to our troops.
Russiagate
who are
conspiracy theory.
sacrificing their lives for the sake of our democracy and our safety.
Thank you, Senator Harris. This is such an important issue, but we have other important issues as well, and
Susan,
I
have
want to make
respond
sure
to
we
that.
have a chance
I really have
talk
to
about.
respond to that.
I'm-
Look, she has
15 seconds because
Well, I gotta
we're
have
trying
more
to
than
keep.
that. Look.
Well, I'm sorry, but Vice President
Look,
Pence, you've had more time than she's
the-
had
the
so far.
slanders against President Donald Trump regarding men and women of our
Can't
armed
find out
forces
just
are
yet. I'm
absurd.
pretty sure
I'm
Migoya
sorry, Vice
My
does.
President
son is
Pence.
a captain in the United
Yes.
States Marine Corps. My son-in-law is deployed in the United States Navy. I can assure all of you, with sons and daughters serving in our military, President Donald Trump not only respects but reveres all of those who serve in our armed forces, and any suggestion otherwise is ridiculous.
But
Let
Thank
me
you,
also
Vice
say
President Pence.
the
Vice
the
President
American
Pence,
people
you know,
deserve, Susan,
Vice
the American
President
people
Pence, I
deserve to
didn't,
know.
Vice President
that-
Pence, I did not,
that-
excuse
that-
me,
deny.
Susan, the
I did
American
not
people
create
deserve
the
to know
rules for tonight.
Joe Biden
Your
and Kam-
campaigns agreed to the rules for tonight's
I-
debate with the Commission on Presidential Debates. I'm here to enforce them, which involves moving from one topic to another, giving roughly equal time to both of
Go
you,
right ahead.
which is what I'm trying very hard to do.
Go right ahead.
So I want to go ahead and move to the next topic, which is an important one, as the last topic was, and that is the Supreme Court.
All right,
On
let's
Monday,
see
the
what it takes
Senate
on that.
Judiciary Committee
On
is
the
scheduled to
Supreme
open
Court.
hearings on
Why
Amy
do I
Coney
keep
Barrett's nomination
putting
to the
on and
Supreme
off my
Court.
jacket?
Senator Harris, you'll be there as a member of the committee.
Hopefully.
Her confirmation would cement the court's conservative majority and make it likely open to more abortion restrictions, even to overturning the landmark Roe v. Wade ruling. Access to abortion would then be up to the states.
Yes.
Vice President Pence, you're the former governor of Indiana. If Roe v. Wade is overturned, what would you want Indiana to do? Would you want your home state to ban all abortions? You have 2 minutes, uninterrupted.
Well, thank you for the question, but I'll use a little bit of my time to respond to that very important issue before. The American people deserve to know Qasem Soleimani, the Iranian general, was responsible for the death of hundreds of American service members. When the opportunity came, we saw him headed to Baghdad to kill more Americans. President Trump didn't hesitate, and Qasem Soleimani is gone. But you deserve to know that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris actually criticized the decision to take out Qasem Soleimani. It's really inexplicable, but with regard to Joe Biden, it's explainable. Because history records that Joe Biden actually opposed the raid against Osama bin Laden. It's
Really?
absolutely essential
That I did not
that
know.
we have a commander-in-chief who will not hesitate to act to protect American lives and to protect American service members, and that's what you have in President Donald Trump. Now, with regard to the Supreme Court of the United States, let me say President Trump and I could not be more enthusiastic about the opportunity to see Judge Amy Coney Barrett become Justice Amy Coney Barrett. Now, she's a brilliant woman, and she will bring a lifetime of experience and a sizable American family to the Supreme Court of the United States. And our hope is, in the hearing next week, unlike Justice Kavanaugh received with treatment from you and others, we hope she gets a fair hearing. And we particularly hope that we don't see the kind of attacks on her Christian faith that we saw before. I mean, the Democrat chairman of the Judiciary Committee before,
Answer the question,
when
though, but
Judge Barrett was
Pence.
being confirmed for the Court
Answer
of
the
Appeals,
question.
expressed concern that the dogma of her faith lived loudly in her. Dick Durbin of Illinois said that it was a concern. Senator, I
please
know
answer
one of
the
our
question.
judicial nominees you actually attacked because they were a member of the Catholic Knights of Columbus, just because the Knights of Columbus holds
Answer the
pro-life
question.
views and
Thank you.
Pence.
views.
Thank you, Vice President
So
Pence. Your
my
time
hope
is
is
up.
that when the hearing takes place, that
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
Answer
that
the
Judge
answer.
Amy Coney Barrett will be respected,
Thank you,
treated
Vice President
respectfully,
Pence.
voted and confirmed
Thank
to the
you.
Supreme Court of the United States.
Senator
Come on,
Harris,
Pence, answer
you're
the question.
senator from and former Attorney General of California. So let me ask you a parallel question to the one.
Answer
I
the
posed to
questions,
Vice President.
man.
If Roe v. Wade is overturned, what would you want California to do? Would you want your home state to enact no restrictions on access to abortion? And you have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Thank you, Susan. First of all, Joe Biden and I are both people of faith, and it's insulting to suggest that we would.
Well, you just
not
did the same for
practice.
Trump.
And in fact, Joe
Practice
was
what you
elected to be
preach.
only the second practicing Catholic as president of the United States. On the issue of this nomination, Joe and I are very clear, as are the majority of the American people. We are 27 days before the decision about who will be the next president of the United States. And, you know, before, when this conversation has come up, you know, it's been about election year or election time. We're literally in an election. Over 4 million people have voted. People are in the process of voting right now. And so Joe
where's
has been
my
very
ballot?
clear, as the American
Where's my
people,
ballot?
let the American people
Where the
fill that
fuck is
seat
my
in the
ballot,
White House,
Harris, then?
and then we'll fill that seat on the United States Supreme Court. And to your point, Susan, the issues before us couldn't be more serious. There's the issue of choice, and I will always fight for a woman's right to make a decision about her own body. It should be her decision and not that of Donald Trump and the Vice President, Michael Pence.
Nope.
But let's also look at what else is before the
I
court.
don't think
It's the
they should
Affordable
be
Care Act.
only their choice.
Literally in the midst
Not
of a
if you are
public
in a
health
consenting
pandemic,
relationship and
when
you
over
both chose to have sex.
210,000
You should
people have
own up
died,
to your
and 7
behavior.
million people probably have what will be in the future considered a pre-existing condition because
If you are not in
contracted
a
the
consenting
virus.
relationship, then
Donald Trump is
absolutely
in
you
court
should
right
be
now
able to
trying to
have
get rid of the
abortion.
Affordable Care Act. And I said it before, and it bears repeating.
But you can't
This means
really
that there
seriously
will be no
suggest-
more protections if they win for people with pre-existing conditions. This means that over 20 million people will lose your coverage. It means that if you're under the age of 26, you can't stay on your parents' coverage anymore. And here's the thing. The contrast couldn't be more clear. They're trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act.
Yes.
Joe Biden is saying, let's expand coverage. Let's give you a choice of a public
Thank you,
option
Senator.
or private coverage. Let's bring down premiums.
Senator
Let's
Harris.
lower Medicare eligibility to 60.
Thank you, Senator.
That's true
Harris.
leadership.
You know,
That's not leadership.
You mentioned earlier,
absolute
Vice President
subservience.
Pence, that the president was committed to maintaining protections for people with pre-existing conditions. But you do have this court case that you are supporting, your administration supporting, that would strike down the Affordable Care Act. The president says, President Trump says that he's going to protect people with pre-existing conditions, but he has not explained how he would do that. And that was one of the toughest
That
nuts to
is
crack
a fair
when they were
point.
passing the Affordable Care Act. So tell us specifically, how would your administration protect Americans with pre-existing conditions to have access to affordable insurance if the Affordable Care Act is
Please
struck
answer
down?
this question.
Well, thank you, Susan. But let me just say, addressing your very first question, I couldn't be more proud to serve as vice president to a president who stands without apology for the sanctity of human life. I'm pro-life. I don't apologize for it. And this is another one of those cases where there's such a dramatic contrast. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris support taxpayer funding of abortion all the way up to the moment of birth. Late-term abortion. They want to
Virginia.
increase funding to Planned Parenthood of America. Now, for our part, I would never presume how Judge Amy Coney Barrett would rule on the Supreme Court of the United States, but we'll continue to stand strong for the right to life. When you speak about the Supreme Court, though, I think the American people really deserve an answer, Senator Harris. Are you and Joe Biden going to pack the court if Judge Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed? I mean, there have been 29 vacancies on the Supreme Court during presidential election years, from George Washington to Barack Obama. Presidents have nominated in all 29 cases. But your party is actually openly advocating
Pence.
adding seats
Answer
to
the
the
questions.
Supreme Court, which has had 9 seats for 150
You are trailing
years
behind
if you
on
don't
this.
get your way. This is a classic case of if you can't win by the rules, You're going to change the rules. Now, you've refused to answer the question. Joe Biden has refused to answer the question. So I think the American people would really like to know, if Judge Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed to the Supreme Court of the United States, are you and Joe Biden, if somehow you win this election, going to pack the Supreme Court to get your way?
I'm so glad we went through a little history lesson. Let's do that a little more. In 1864...
Oh, really?
I'd like you to answer the question.
Mr. Vice President, I'm
please,
speaking.
very
I'm
fast.
speaking. Okay. In 1864, one of the, I think, political heroes, certainly of the president, I assume if you also, Mr. Vice President, is Abraham Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
Abraham Lincoln was up for re-election, and it was 27 days before the election.
I'm pretty sure it wasn't a re-election.
Supreme Court. Abraham
Pretty sure
Lincoln's party
1860
was in charge not only of the White House, but the
Okay,
Senate.
now you're just making me
But
want
honest
to
Abe
look this up.
said it's not the right thing to do. The American people deserve to make the decision about who will be the next president of the United States, and then that person can select who will serve for a lifetime on the highest court of our land. And so Joe and I are very clear. The American people are voting right now.
Yeah,
And it should
she
be
got it
their
wrong.
decision
She got it
who
wrong.
will
She said
on this
1860,
body for a
Lincoln is up for re-election,
Senator Harris.
but he didn't take office
I'd like to know if you and Joe
until
Biden pack the
1861.
Supreme Court.
You're not getting history right.
talk about packing.
You once
Come
again
on.
gave a non-answer.
She's
Joe
not even
Biden.
getting history right.
American people deserve a straight answer.
She's not getting history
The
right.
straight answer is they are going to pack the Supreme
The presidency of Abraham Lincoln began on March 4th, 1861.
Cherish our Supreme Court.
He wasn't up for re-election in
Reject
1860.
the Biden-Harris ticket. Come November the 3rd, re-elect President Donald Trump, and we'll stand by that separation of
Are
powers
you
of 9.
kidding me?
Yeah, let's talk about packing.
Seriously?
Let's talk about the
Please.
fact. Yeah, I'm about to.
You already lost the history argument.
So, the Trump-Pence administration.
How can you say
'Cause I said
you're
I
about
was gonna
facts
give you
when you can't even get your basic history
The
right?
appointments for
Why are you so stupid?
federal courts, district courts, courts of appeal.
Why are you so stupid, Terrace?
Purely
Why are you so stupid?
have been reviewed by
Oh my God!
professional organizations.
I'm gonna give you a history lesson and then get the first example wrong.
And do you know that of the 50 people who President Trump appointed to the
Oh!
appeals for lifetime appointments,
Oh!
black, this is what they've been doing. You want to talk about packing a court? Let's have that discussion.
All right, thank you, Senator. Let's go on and talk about the issue of racial justice.
She says let's have this
You
discussion.
never answered the question. So I think the American people,
Thank
maybe
you.
the next debate, Joe Biden will answer the question.
Thank you-
But I think
thank
the
you.
American people know the answer.
Thank you, Vice President.
Oh, that.
In March, Breonna
That's
Taylor,
savagery.
a 26-year-old emergency room technician in Louisville, was shot and killed after police officers executing a search warrant in a narcotics investigation broke into her apartment. The police said they identified
here we go.
themselves. Taylor's
Buckle
boyfriend
up.
said he didn't hear them do that. He used a gun registered to him to fire a shot, which wounded an officer. The officers then fired more than 20 rounds into the apartment. They say they were acting in self-defense. None of them have been indicted in connection with her death. Senator Harris, in the case of Breonna Taylor, was justice done? You have 2 minutes.
I don't believe so, and I've talked
And
to
you've lost
Breonna's mother,
any chance of
Tamika
my vote.
Palmer, and her family. And
What happened to her was a
family
tragedy.
deserves justice. She was a beautiful young woman.
But
had
she
as her
was
life goal to become a
associated
nurse.
with a
She wanted to become
narcotics
an
dealer.
EMT to first learn what's going on out on the street, so she could then
You've lost any
become a
credibility.
nurse and save lives. And her life was taken unjustifiably
She
and
was
tragically and violently.
in an environment
And it brings
where
me
her
to
husband was a narcotics dealer.
the 8 minutes and 46 seconds that America witnessed,
What-
during which an American man was tortured and killed under the knee of an armed, uniformed police officer.
He was also had the knee on by
And
a
people
fellow
around
bouncer
our
that had a
country
personal issue with.
Every race, of every age, of every gender, perfect strangers to each other,
Only 2 of them, babe.
marched shoulder to shoulder, arm in arm, fighting for us to finally achieve that ideal of equal justice under law. And I was a part of those peaceful protests.
They were riots.
And I believe strongly that, first of all, we are never going to condone violence, but we always must fight for the values that we hold dear, including the fight to achieve our ideals. And that's why Joe Biden and I have said on this subject, look, and I'm a former career prosecutor. I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, don't bring, you idiot, don't bring that up. That's going to ruin you.
Policing in America and our criminal justice system, which is why Joe and I will immediately ban chokeholds and carotid holds. George Floyd would be alive today if we did that. We will require a national registry for police officers who break the law.
That I can
on the
agree
issue of
with.
criminal justice reform,
That I can agree with.
get rid of private prisons and cash bail, and
Thank
we
you.
will decriminalize marijuana, and
Thank
we
you,
will
Senator Harris.
Marijuana has nothing to
expunge
do
the
with it.
records of those who have
Thank you,
been
Senator
convicted
Harris.
of marijuana. This is
Thank
a
you,
time
Senator
for
Harris.
leadership on a tragic issue
Senator Harris,
of
your time
unarmed
is up.
black people in America who
Thank
have
you,
been
Senator
killed.
Harris.
A passive
Vice
stance
President Pence,
is
let me
not
pose the same
leadership.
question to you. In the case of Breonna Taylor,
Even
was
Pence
justice
just
done?
does.
You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Well, our heart breaks for the loss of any innocent American life. And the family of Breonna Taylor has our sympathies. But I trust our justice system, a grand jury that refused the evidence. And it really is remarkable that as a former prosecutor, you would assume that an impaneled grand jury looking at all the evidence got it wrong. But you're entitled to your opinion, Senator. I think, look, and with regard to George Floyd, there's no excuse for what happened to George Floyd.
Thank you.
Justice will be served. But there's also no excuse for the rioting and looting that followed. I mean, it really is astonishing. Flora Westbrook is with us here tonight in Salt Lake City. Just a few weeks ago, I stood at what used to be her salon. It was burned to the ground by rioters and looters. And Flora is still trying to put her life back together. And I must tell you, this presumption that you hear consistently from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, that America is systemically racist, and that, as Joe Biden said, that he believes that law enforcement has an implicit bias against minorities, is a great insult to the men and women who serve in law enforcement. And I want everyone to know who puts on the uniform of law enforcement every day that President Trump and I stand with you. And it is remarkable that when Senator Tim Scott tried to pass a police reform bill, brought together a group of Republicans and Democrats, Senator Harris,
Wow.
you got up and walked out of the room. And then you
Wow.
filibustered Senator Tim Scott's bill on the Senate floor that would have provided new accountability, new resources. But we don't have to choose between supporting law enforcement, improving public safety, and supporting our African American
Thank you,
neighbors
Vice
and all of
President.
our minorities. Under President Trump's leadership,
Thank you,
we'll
Vice President
always
Pence.
stand with law enforcement, and we'll do what we've done
Vice
from
President
day
Pence,
one, and
thank
that is
you. Your time
improve
is
the
up.
lives of African Americans.
Thank you, Vice
Record
President
unemployment, record
Vice
investments in
President Pence, your time
education,
is
and we'll
up.
fight for school choice for all of our minorities.
Thank you, Vice
I'd
President.
like to respond.
Senator Harris.
I will not sit here and be lectured by the Vice President
You
on
will.
what it means to enforce the laws of our country. I am the only one on this stage who has personally prosecuted everything from child sexual assault to
Quit!
homicide.
Stop! Why are you
I'm
doing
the only one
this?
on this stage
This is the worst argument you can
for
make!
taking advantage of America's
Why are you
finances.
making
The
this
only one on
argument with all the
stage
minorities you've
prosecuted
imprisoned?
For-profit colleges
Why
taking advantage
are
of our
you
veterans.
doing this?
And the reality of this is
You bloody
that we are
fucking
talking
moron!
about an election in 27 days, where last week the President of the United States took a debate stage in front of 70 million Americans and refused to condemn white supremacists.
That's also false!
And
Not true.
it wasn't like he didn't have a chance. He didn't do it, and then he doubled down.
No,
And then he said, when pressed, stand back, stand by.
There we go, there's an argument.
This is a part of a pattern of
Not
Donald
really, no.
Trump's.
Not really, no.
He called Mexicans rapists and criminals.
No, he called MS-13
He
rapists and
instituted
criminals.
As his first act, a Muslim ban. He, on the issue of Charlottesville, where people were peacefully protesting the need for racial justice, where a young woman was killed. And on the other side, there were neo-Nazis carrying tiki torches, shouting racial epithets, anti-Semitic slurs. And Donald Trump, when asked about it, said,
No.
there were fine people on both
No,
sides.
it's revisionism.
This is who we have as the President of the United States. And America, you deserve better. Joe Biden will be a president who brings our country together
Senator Harris,
and recognizes the beauty in our diversity and the fact that we
Senator
all
Harris,
have
thank
so
you.
much more in common than what separates us.
Vice President Pence, let me give you a minute to respond.
Thank you, Susan. I appreciate that very much. You know, I think this is one of the things that makes people dislike the media so much in this country, Susan, is that you selectively edit, just like Senator Harris did, comments that President Trump and I and others on our side of the aisle make. I mean, Senator Harris conveniently omitted, after the president made comments about people on either side of the debate over monuments, he condemned the KKK, neo-Nazis, and white supremacists, and has done so repeatedly. You're concerned that he doesn't condemn neo-Nazis. President Trump has Jewish grandchildren. His daughter and son-in-law are Jewish. This is a president who respects and cherishes all of the American people. But you talk about having personally prosecuted. I'm glad you brought up your record.
Thank you.
I really need to make this point. When you were DA in San Francisco,
Thank
and
you.
left office, African Americans were 19 times more likely to be prosecuted for minor drug offenses than whites and Hispanics. When you were Attorney General of California,
Thank you,
you
Vice President.
increased the disproportionate incarceration of
Thank
blacks
you.
in California. You did nothing on criminal justice reform in California.
Thank
you. Didn't lift
you.
a finger
Thank
to
you.
pass
Dead.
the First Step Act
You're-
on Capitol Hill. I mean, the reality
She's
is
smiling.
records
Why is she
say
smiling?
President Trump and I have fought for criminal justice
This is
Thank you,
not
Vice
a
President.
smile.
fought for educational choice and opportunities for African Americans, all of our
Thank you,
minorities.
sir.
And we'll do it for 4 more
Thank you.
years.
You know, there is no more important issue than the final issue that we're going to talk about tonight,
Thank
and that is
you.
the issue of the election
But
itself.
Susan, he attacked my record. I would like an opportunity to respond.
Let me give you 30 seconds because we're running out of
I
time.
appreciate that. First of all, having served as the Attorney General of the state of California, the work that I did is a model of what our nation needs to do, and we will be able to
What are you talking about?
Biden presidency.
You just killed
Our
your
agenda
own goddamn
This
campaign.
administration has failed to do. It will be about not only instituting a ban on chokeholds and carotid holes.
Thank you.
Not only,
Thank you, Senator
I
Harris.
would like to go through,
These are
30
points that were made
seconds.
earlier in the hour, and I want to talk about the election itself before we have to.
but I want to talk about the connection between what Joe and I will do and my record, which includes, I was the first statewide officer to institute a requirement that my agents would wear body cameras and keep them on full time. We were the first to initiate a requirement that there would be a training for law enforcement on implicit bias because, yes, Joe Biden and I recognize that implicit bias does exist, Mr. Vice President, contrary to what you may believe.
It's
we
not,
did the
though.
work of instituting reforms that were about investing in reentry. This is the work that we have done and the work we will do going
Until
forward. And
all the
again,
victims
I
are
will
black
not be lectured
And all
by
the
the Vice
perpetrators
President
are white. Your argument holds no
on our
water.
record of what we have done in terms of law enforcement and keeping our communities safe and a commitment to reforming the criminal justice system of America.
Thank you, Senator Harris. And I'd like to I'd like you to respond first to the question on our final topic, the election itself. President Trump has several times refused to commit himself to a peaceful transfer of power after the election. If your ticket wins and President Trump refuses to accept a peaceful transfer of power, what steps would you and Vice President Biden then take? What would happen next? You have 2 minutes.
So I'll tell you, Joe and I are, I think, particularly proud of the coalition that we've built around our campaign. We probably have one
You
of the
shouldn't
broadest
be.
coalitions of folks that you've
You shouldn't
ever seen
be.
in the presidential race. Of course, we have the support of Democrats, but also independents and Republicans. In fact, 7 members of President George W. Bush's cabinet are supporting our
Trust
ticket.
me, you don't want to have Bush in your corner. You don't want Bush's tainted reign. You don't want his tainted reign.
Over 500.
Wait, why are you making a support argument of Bush when you're literally saying you were making the Martin Van Buren argument earlier?
And I believe they are doing that because they know that Joe Biden has a deep, deep-seated commitment to fight for our democracy and to fight for the integrity of our democracy and to bring integrity back to the White House.
It's a republic.
And
it's
so
not a democracy. You fucking bellend.
I believe in our democracy.
It's
and
republic.
Here's what I'd like to say to everybody. Vote. Please vote. Vote early.
I will.
Come up with a plan to vote. Go
I
to
will.
ivote.com.
And you know what? Who I will vote for?
There's have it within our power in these next 27 days to make the decision about what will be the course of our country for the next 4 years.
It will be
Trump.
Trump.
Within our power, and if we use our
you will
vote,
get
and
nothing.
we use our voice, we will
your
win.
voice.
And we will not let anyone subvert our democracy.
Republic.
What Donald Trump has been doing, as he did on the debate last week, when again in front of 70 million people, he openly attempted to suppress the vote. Joe Biden, on the other hand, on that same debate stage, because clearly Donald Trump doesn't
citation
on
needed.
the record because it's a failed.
Citation needed.
Joe Biden on that stage said, "Hey, just please vote." So I'll repeat what Joe said. Please vote.
And I will.
Senator,
and I will
Vice
vote for Trump.
President Trump has several times refused to commit himself to a peaceful transfer of power after the election. If Vice President Biden is declared the winner and President Trump refuses to accept a peaceful transfer of power, what would be your role and responsibility as Vice President? What would you personally
That is a critical question.
Questions.
That is a very critical
Well, Susan, first and foremost, I think we're going to win this election. Because Joe Biden and Kamala Harris rattle off a long litany of the establishment in Washington, D.C., an establishment that Joe Biden's been a part of for 47 years. President Donald Trump has launched a movement of everyday Americans from every walk of life. And I have every confidence that those same Americans that delivered that historic victory in 2016, they see this president's record where we rebuild our military, we revived our economy through tax cuts and rolling back regulation, fighting for fair trade, unleashing American energy. We appointed conservatives to our federal courts at every level. And we stood with the men and women of law enforcement every single day. And I think that movement of Americans has only grown stronger in the last 4 years. But when you talk about accepting the outcome of the election, I must tell you, Senator, your party has spent the last 3.5 years trying to overturn the results of the last election. It's amazing. When Joe Biden was vice president of the United States,
Wow.
the FBI actually spied on President Trump and my campaign. I mean, there were documents released this week that the CIA actually made a referral to the FBI documenting that those allegations were coming from the Hillary Clinton campaign. And of course, we've all seen the avalanche, what you put the country through for the better part of 3 years until it was found that there was no obstruction, no collusion, case closed. And then Senator Harris, you and your colleagues in the Congress tried to impeach the President of the United States over a phone call. And now Hillary Clinton has actually said to Joe Biden that in her words, under no circumstances should he concede the election. So let me just say, I think we're going to win this election. President Trump and I are fighting every day in courthouses to prevent Joe Biden and Kamala Harris from changing the rules and creating this universal mail-in voting that will create a massive opportunity for voter fraud. And we have a free and fair election. We know we're going to have confidence in it. And I believe in all my heart that President Donald Trump's going to be reelected for 4 more years.
You know, I've written all the questions that I've asked tonight, but for the final question of the debate, I'd like to read a question that someone else wrote. The Utah Debate Commission asked students in the state to write essays about what they would like to ask you. And I want to close tonight's debate with the question posed by Brecklin Brown. She's an 8th grader at Springville Junior High in Springville, Utah. And here's what she wrote, quote, "When I watch the news, all I see is arguing between Democrats and Republicans. When I watch the news, all I see is citizen fighting against citizen. When I watch the news, all I see are 2 candidates from opposing parties trying to tear each other down. If our leaders can't get along, How are the citizens supposed to get along? And then she added, your examples could make all the difference to bring us together, end quote. So to each of you in turn, I'd like you to take 1 minute. And
I hope that
respond
person keeps
to
that passion
Vice President Pence.
until they're 35 plus.
Brecklin, it's a wonderful question. And,
Absolutely a wonderful question.
let me just commend you for taking an interest in public life. I started following the news when I was very young. And in America, we believe in a free and open exchange of debate. And we celebrate that. And it's how we've created literally the freest and most prosperous nation in the history of the world. But I would tell you that don't assume that what you're seeing on your local news networks is synonymous with the American people. You know, I look at the relationship between Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the late justice who we just lost from the Supreme Court, and the late Justice Antonin Scalia. They were on polar opposites on the Supreme Court of the United States, one very liberal, one very conservative. But what's been learned since her passing was the two of them and their families were the very closest of friends. I mean, here in America, we can disagree. We can debate vigorously, as Senator Harris and I have on this stage tonight. But when the debate is over, we come together as Americans. And that's what people do in big cities and small towns all across this country. So I just want to encourage you, Brecklin. I want to tell you that we're going to work every day to have government as good as our people. And the American people each and every day love a good debate. We love a good argument. But we always come together and are always there for one another.
Thank you.
Sold.
Need, and we've especially learned that
Fucking
Thank you.
through
sold.
the difficulties of this year.
Sold.
Senator Harris, what would you say to Brecklin?
First of all, I love hearing from our young leaders. And when I hear her words, when I hear your words, Brecklin, I know our future is bright because it is that perspective on who we are and who we should be. That is a sign of leadership and is something we should all
You are
aspire
being
to.
so snide
And
right
that,
now.
You know, that brings me to Joe. Joe Biden, one of the reasons that Joe decided to run for president is after Charlottesville, which we talked about earlier. It so troubled him and upset him like it did all of us, that there was that kind of hate and division. What propelled Joe to run for president was to see that over the course of the last 4 years, what Brecklin described has been happening. Joe has a long-standing reputation of working across the aisle,
You are so
working in a
inherently
bipartisan
negative.
way.
You've
And
lost
that's what
me.
he's going to do as president.
You've lost me,
Joe
Harris.
Biden has a
You've lost
history
me.
of lifting people up and fighting for
lost
their
me.
dignity.
You've
You
lost
have
me.
to know Joe's story to know that Joe has known pain, he has known suffering, and he has known love. And so, Brecklin, when you think about the future, I do believe the future is bright. And it will be because of your leadership, and it will be because we fight for each person's voice through their vote, and we get engaged in this election because you have the ability through your work and through eventually your vote
Thank you,
to
Senator Harris.
determine the future of our country and what its leadership looks like.
Thank you, Senator Harris.
You
Thank
offered
Vice
no
President
answer.
Pence. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. We want to thank also the University of Utah for its hospitality, and most of all, our thanks to all the Americans who watched this debate tonight. Again, our best wishes
welcome.
for a quick recovery to President Trump,
Thank
the
you.
First Lady, and everyone who is battling COVID-19. The second presidential debate is next week on October 15th, a town hall style debate in Miami. We hope you'll join us then. Good evening.
You too, man. You too. So, they're going to do a photo op as they usually do. Okay? While they're doing that, I'm using the restroom, and then I'm going to give you my final thoughts on this debate. Be right back. Come on. There we go. Come on. So.
record of the Trump administration on a number of issues. He pivoted and used the time to deliver a direct attack against Joe Biden's long record in Washington. And I was stunned because I thought that Kamala Harris, the former prosecutor and skilled debater, from many of the senators, would be able to make sure that it was the Trump record that was on defense. And many times it seemed like Kamala was on defense.
I think she was trying to follow the rules, though. I mean, I think she was paying attention to uninterrupted conversation, keep on your time cues, and he did not do that.
So the question is, and sometimes in these debates, it's just the turf you own is more important than whether your answer makes any sense. And Mike Pence was very good, particularly in the economic section, talking about taxes and trade. If only the candidate at the top of the ticket had the discipline that he has. And that's the trouble and always been the challenge for the Trump campaign. We can talk to Reince Priebus about that later. And so, the second thing about Mike Pence is, as any of us who've interviewed him know what it's like, it's sometimes difficult. He is very assertive, but is assertion what is needed for the campaign, or is persuasion? He can assert to the crowd that they've already got, but the president needs to do well with the voters he's been shedding. And you can't do that just with assertion.
Our team was following it very closely, and the Vice President, Mike Pence, interrupted Senator Kamala Harris twice as often. She interrupted her. The Vice President interrupted Senator Kamala Harris 10 times during this debate, when suburban women are certainly a key constituency. Does that matter, or the content of what was said? Certainly in this debate is that issue. I want to bring in Nicole Killian.
Well, I think people understand if you want to finish a thought. I think everybody gives you a pass on that, but many times he finished that thought and then kept going. A few times I was thinking, this is a very long 2 minutes. Very long 2 minutes.
Yep, that's the main critique I have.
Yes, is the
main critique I have.
I heard him.
Let's bring in Nicole Killian, who is at the debate site. And Nicole, your take.
Well, look, I think it was interesting from a number of standpoints. One notable moment came towards the end of the debate where the senator did not answer the question with regard to the issue of court packing. That is something that we saw in last week's debate as well, when the former vice president was pressed on that issue in light of the nomination of Amy Coney Barrett, and whether or not Democrats, if they are to win in the election, if they would then try to pack the court, depending on how this all plays out. And so this is actually something that I put to her chief of staff earlier today, if we would get a clear answer from the senator on this, and clearly she did not, but she did stand her ground on the issue of race when that came up. She was very clear as far as calling out that moment last week with the president when he did not denounce white supremacy. Also really taking the vice president to task on the issue of the pandemic. I did speak to one of her close friends towards the end of the debate who said she believes that the senator displayed true leadership tonight.
She displayed nothing but abstract promises.
Right. The vice president.
Okay, you know what? I'm done. I'm done looking at the reaction, because the reaction is ludicrous. Wait, hold on. What is
the time to pivot and attack the record of Amy Coney Barrett. Those hearings are going to begin next week. There's a lot that certainly Democrats and liberals disagree with her record, and she didn't do that. But Mike Pence did a job of sort of propping her up tonight, their Supreme Court nominee, on a number of issues, and really throwing it back at the Democrats. CBS's Paula Reed covers the White House. She joins us now from quarantine after being potentially exposed to coronavirus while working at the White House. Paula, you follow this campaign very closely. Your thoughts?
The Trump-Pence campaign does not want this election to be a referendum on its handling of COVID. And you saw here in the debate from the very first question, the vice president was on the defensive, trying to put the administration's handling of this pandemic in a positive light. As you noted, Senator Harris described it as a historic failure. The vice president defended the response, saying they always put the health of Americans first. He also made a series of false statements. For example, he said that the administration banned all travel from China at the beginning of the pandemic. That is not true. He was also asked about a ceremony in the Rose Garden several days ago that now looks like it was likely a super spreader event. He also said that...
Okay, this is false too. All right, here's what you need to know. Okay, both the reactions to this debate were a little bad. Okay, here's what actually happened. Okay, Mike Pence is a man who stood his ground properly. But all Kamala Harris did is say Biden is a leader. All Kamala Harris said was that she was a leader. There's a massive difference between saying you are something and what you actually are. And it's because of this that I can't take Democrats seriously right now. Because Democrats don't quite understand the difference between conceptualization and actualization. She doesn't understand that her abstract statements are not reality, and I think one of the best moments Pence had in that debate was the line of, "You have every right to your opinion, but you don't have a right to your own facts." In my opinion, Pence won hands fucking down. He won hands down. There is no debate. Well, I guess there is debate about it, but honestly, it's fucking wrong if you think Pence lost. Because there's no way in hell anything anybody said about Harris in a positive light is true. They keep saying that she's a leader here, but he brought up what happens when she's a leader of any position. And he actually called her out on it, and he won. The one weakness Pence had was his pacing. He kept using time in the current to address past points made. That is something I would find a valid critique here. Pence, in my opinion, had a 80-20 relationship. He won 80% of the time, and lost 20%. There is no question whatsoever that Pence basically butchered her. Pence basically just slaughtered her. He proved he is battle-tested. And he proved he was not, in fact, a wallflower, which is a positive. You guys have to keep in mind this thing. Pence had no difficulty whatsoever. There was no difficulty. There was no form of competition. Pence absolutely bodied her. No difficulty. 80% victory towards Pence, 20% towards Harris. But it was the last question that the kid asked that really sold me. Pence won that key critical moment. Hands down. Well done. Well done. So I'm going to throw out a random anime girl comparison here. Okay? We're going to go... Oh, and I know this is going to be a bit of a weird example, okay? We're going to go. Okay? This will be Pence, okay? Pence is Vert. I know that sounds a little ludicrous. Pence is Vert, okay? Pence is Vert. Now let's add another. Let's add another one here. Let's find the nearest anime girl render here. Where's the next render? Where's the next render? Can't be Konosuba because that's me. Where's the next render? Where's the next render? Where's my next anime girl render? Okay. Come on, next anime girl render. Next anime girl render. Not yet. She's not a render. Render. Come on. I gotta have a render here somewhere. Some anime girl render. Come on. You gotta have it here somewhere. And it can't be here either. Sorry, working on finding a random visual representation. Because Vert is Pence. Now let's see what we got for Harris here. You know what? Fuck it. Not going to be a render. We're just going to pick this image. This will be Kamala Harris. Since she loves Xi Peng so much, might as well, right? Alright, here's the strengths of each one, okay? Kamala Harris tried to have some decent courtesy and convention and decorum. That's 10 points to her. Also, a minus 10 points to Pence that goes to Kamala Harris because of the way that Pence structured his argument. However, on every issue, there is no doubt in my mind, now you can come to your own conclusions on this, but there is no doubt on my mind that every single issue Pence won. So here's my final score. Okay, come on. Hurry up. I need to get my texts. Oh, God, this is going to be a disaster. Fuck that. Come on. Why is it doing this? Anywho. You know what? Screw it. You get the point. Biden won 80-20. Hands down. Pence won. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to say like the video if you have not already. Subscribe if you are new. Click the bell and select all to be notified of more of my content. Also follow me on Twitch at OneManCast. With that, guys, I am OneMan/Mercenary346. I'm out, bitches. No,